Hello and welcome to Unit 4 of this course. And in this section, we are going to be talking about the right and left zones inside of Cubase. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the left zone in Cubase, which is by pressing this top right corner, this left one right here, and it's going to open up the left zone. We're going to have two sections here, the inspector and the visibility, which will be your best friends throughout your Cubase journey. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the first tab, which is where your instrument is loaded up. If I hit this bottom tab, you're going to see several options here, and this is all controlling the sound that comes out of Cubase when you're loading up a MIDI instrument. So if I play, so here I have the option to mute, I have the option to solo, I have the option to read the automation, write automation, open device panel, which is essentially the instrument itself, and do what we call input transformer, which we won't get into because that is another advanced topic. We have the record button, so we can enable recording. We have the monitor function. If this was audio, we can input monitor. And we have musical and time-based. We can lock the MIDI track to show some lanes. So if I have MIDI CC data, I can see them in here, and I can also freeze tracks in here. I have the volume of this instrument here. So if I play, I can control the overall volume, which is the fader inside of the mixer. I have the panning control here, and I have track delay inside of here. If you have any track presets, you can load them up here. So if you have, like, let's say a signal chain going on or like some settings that you like, you could put them in here. You have the input for the MIDI channels. You have the actual instrument for itself. So let's say I want to change sample libraries. I can click here, and then I can choose the different sample libraries. I can choose to edit the instrument that I'm working on, as you can see right here. And then you could change also the port number or the channel number over here. So this is all very useful information. So like, let's say you have external hardware or, any other MIDI devices attached to this, or you're using a separate machine to host your sample libraries, you can go ahead and change the port numbers and MIDI inputs in here. You also have the option to use the channel strip inside of Cubase. So if I hit this E right here, this is a channel strip that comes with Cubase. And here you could put insert effects. You can also use their gate, their compressor, EQ, saturation, limiter, and all that stuff inside of here. You have a giant EQ section here. You could do inserts, you could do in strip mode, you can do Q send, so if you're sending like headphone mixes, you can do it all inside of here. And you are able to, again, load up some track presets, send them stereo out or any groups that and you can see all of that information inside of here. So in the bottom section, we have track version. So let's say you're working on a track and you've created a data from 1 to 3, for example. So in this case, if I create a new version of this track, that means that this version is going to still be saved inside of Cubase, but I'm going to create a second version where, let's say now this track, I did another version of the tune and it was 4 measures long. Or 3 measures long here. And now let's say I didn't really like that one. Let me go back to the first take. I can click on one, and now you see track version number 1. But I didn't have to load up a different sound. I didn't have to duplicate the sound. It's simply just you're using the same track, but you're just calling it version 2, and that's what track versions are. You can duplicate the versions here, you create a new one, or you could delete one in this menu. Here we have other options to manipulate the sound. So here we have things like EQ. Here we have things like the audio inserts that you have here, the audio sends, and then the audio fader, kind of like what you see in the channel strip. When you open this, you just get it in a condensed form in the left side of your inspector window. So here you have the option to, as well, filter out the sections that you want to see here. So here I could take off things like fader. I can add things to it. So like if I want this strip or the surround pan or the direct routing, I can add those in as well. In the bottom section here, we have things like the expression map, which I kind of briefly touched upon, but it won't be a big topic in this video. And it's essentially, I can set up any other things, like I want my notepad in here, note expression, inserts for MIDI, device panel, and any other things that I want to add, I can go ahead and put it in here. If we move over to the visibility tab, here we see options to hide tracks that are generally inside of your project window and you don't want to see. So like, for example, if I load up a couple of tracks of this keyscape, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's say I only want to see 3 and 4. I'm going to turn off everything except 3, and 4. And now I filtered out my project window. This is perfect, especially when you have very big sessions and you only want to focus on a very particular part of the section and you just want to see those 2 tracks. You don't have to be cluttered with all of the other tracks. So let me just go ahead and turn them on. And that is the left zone inside of Cubase. Now we're going to talk about the right zone. So the right zone is this section over here. So if we click on the top right corner, the right zone here, and here we have 4 different tabs that we need to worry about. We have the VSTI tab, which is essentially telling you what you have on your project window as far as instruments. You can set up just regular tracks, which are these, or you can set up what we call rack instruments inside of Cubase. Now, rack instruments are what we call like multi-timbral instruments, where you can plug in, let's say, 1 instance of contact, and then you could split the channel and have 16 different sounds in one plugin. So contact is a very good example of that. So if I open up contact as just a single instrument, and I go ahead and hit add track, and then I start messing around with the sounds inside of contact, notice how with this one plugin, I can load up to 16 different sounds. So if let's say I want to do mosaic tape, let's say I want to do mosaic voices, and if I start to collapse these, you're going to start to see that I could stack up to 16 tracks inside of here, which is perfect because now I get to load up 1 instance of contact and have 16 sounds in it. So with rack instruments, I can have all 16 sounds inside of this one track and route the outputs separately as well. So that is the advantage of using rack instruments, as opposed to instrument tracks, which are these individual tracks, which can only hold 1 sound. And if you do have a contact instrument that has multiple tracks, because you can do it, you're not able to route it properly because it's only going to be coming out of 1 output. So keep that in mind if you use track versus rack instruments. Now, the way you add tracks in here is if you press this little plus sign, you can add an instrument track in here. And if you want to add a rack instrument, then you would click on the rack here. You can also click on the track here and create an instrument. So that's also an option. You could toggle through them like this. And you can do other options like show, hide, collapse this, search. So in the media side, we can do things like file browser, favorites user. So this is like the entire system. This is actually your computer. So you can actually search for files inside of your computer. So this is my hard drive with all of my stuff in it, and I could search it in the media file here. It's very easy to find. And if I have any loops or samples or MIDI packs that I want to use, I could just do it right from Cubase. Next to that, we have what we call the control room. So this is what we talked about before with the audio editor. And if you don't have this set up, then definitely have it set up because this is a very powerful tool. And in a later lesson in this course, I'll show you how powerful this tool is and why you'd probably want to use it. So this is the control room. You can do inserts here, which I had this from a previous session I was doing. This is the insert section. I have the main section here, and you could do different monitors. You could do different down mix presets, and you could do the channel. So you can work in stereo, you can work in 5:1, however you want. You can do it all in here. And you have the mix knob here. You can A/B it, you can dim it, and now to the right of it, the last one is a metering channel. So here we have the meter, so we can see things like the loudness, how loud your track is. You can measure it here. You could choose to bring in your control room in here, so you can lower down volume or change some mixes if you want to. You can change the scale that you read it in. So if you're a mixer and you understand how to use different scales to measure dB and measure your signal and how optimum you want your signal, how loud you want your tracks, you could change it here with just a click of a button. You also have a loudness meter, which will tell you things like LUFS, which is very important, especially if you do like mastering. So these are the components inside of the right and left zones. And I wanted to make this a separate unit because these are 2 sections that are extremely important inside of Cubase. And the longer you use Cubase, the more you're going to use both of these left and right zones. So knowing how to use them and knowing what's inside it is super important. So in the next unit, we're going to talk about visibility filters and how you can filter out certain tracks in your project if you have a very large session. And I'm going to show you how to create even filters of your own so that you can make custom filters with custom names so that you're able to choose them and recall them at any given time. So I will see you in the next unit. I'll see you guys soon. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Unit 5 of this course. In this unit, we're going to be talking about the visibility filters, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper into how you can
use visibility filters to speed up workflow, especially when you have larger sessions. So in this example, I have my film scoring template with over 800 tracks in it. And of course, I don't always want to see these 800 tracks at all times. So what I do is I use visibility filters. So the basic visibility filter that we had previously covered when we were covering the left zone of the Cubase project window is as simple as checking off a box, and you're able to see that you can collapse some of these folder structures as well. And you can just hit the checkbox and essentially remove what you don't want to see. But of course, this is a little bit limiting because that means you would have to go one by one, kind of removing which ones you don't want to see and enabling the ones you do want to see. So how can we take this a step further? So this is the basic visibility filter. So there is an easier way to do this, and we can go up here to the track type filter, and we could deselect all tracks. And let's say I just want to see my MIDI tracks and I want to see my group tracks. Well, of course, I have a ton of MIDI tracks, so I'm going to have to scroll still to be able to see it. But let's say I just want to see my group tracks. So my submixes, here I have my submixes. So now let's go a little deeper and let's check out the advanced visibility filter. Now, it's not really an advanced tool, but most people don't know this tool exists. So if we go to the configurations tab here and we open this, we can see that I have made 37 different configurations for visibility filters that I customized depending on what I needed for my session. So here I have solo instruments, so I can essentially choose woodwinds and only see the woodwinds here with the submix. I can see only brass if I wanted to. I can see only percussion, and the list goes on. I've also made combos, so I have like duos, for example, strings and woodwinds. So I see all of my strings and all of my woodwinds in the session. I can do things like strings and brass, where I have my brass instruments and then I have my string instruments. And I've also created another section called trios with big three groups that I mainly write for. So let's say string, brass, and woodwind is a common one I do. Percussion, drums, brass, and strings, voices, and piano. These are common combinations that I see myself using when I am creating my scores. So I made a separate visibility configuration for those. So as you can see, I have my woodwinds, I have my brass, and then I have my strings, and everything else is hidden. And I'll show you how to create those in just a second. To the right of this configuration settings, we have this little thing that looks like a little house. If I click on it, this is another way to filter your tracks so that you could see tracks that have, let's say, data. You can see tracks that are in a specific cursor position. So let me show you exactly what that means. If I just go into, let's say, my piano's sound, since it's a little smaller, I can go ahead and create a region right now. And let's say I want to create a region right here. Let's say I want to create another region right here. Let me create an overlapping region right here, and then another overlapping one right here. So if, let's say, I'm working on a project and I hit show all, and I see all of my tracks. Well, my piano tracks are all the way down here, but I don't want to actually scroll all the way down here. So let's say I also have like some percussion stuff. Let's do this here, this here, this here, and then we'll do some brass even. So let's say this is what my score looks like right now. I have brass, percussion, and some pianos. Now, of course, look how much scrolling I need to do to see those tracks, and sometimes it can get a little bit daunting just kind of scrolling through all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this little house here, and I'm going to do show tracks with data. What this is going to do is it's only going to show me the tracks that I have data on, and since I created a region in these sections, it only takes out the ones that have the regions available. So notice how even the track numbers stay the same, but I can see every instrument that I'm using at the moment. So if I'm writing for this ensemble for some reason, then I only see this ensemble and I can continue to write for this ensemble without seeing the giant template. We could take it a step further. Let's say you are at a specific point in a song or a track and you want to see what's happening at the moment. Let's say my cursor at measure 9. I just want to see what's happening at measure 9 and nothing else. I'm going to put my cursor on measure 9, and then I'm going to go back to the house, and I'm going to do show tracks with data at cursor position. When I click that, it's only going to show me the 2 tracks that are playing at measure 9 and only those 2 tracks. So notice how everything else went away simply because I don't have any other data other than on measure 9, these 2 tracks, even though you saw data from the other tracks before. Let's take it even a step further. Let's say you have a section that you want to loop. If I grab my locators up here, it'll automatically show a little pencil tool, and I kind of bring them out and I put them to, let's say, from measure 1 to 7. I want to see what's happening between measure 1 and 7. Sorry about that. Let's go to 1, and then let me turn off the cycle. I don't need the cycle. You can have it on if you want to loop it, but I don't need it right now. It could also be toggled on down here. So I'm going to go up here to the little house again and go show tracks with data between locators. Now I'm going to get everything that's active between measure 1 and 7 here. So let's say I don't want to see this. I want to see measures 1 through 6. And I go to show tracks with data between the locators. These disappear because, again, they're not within the region of the locators. Another thing that is possible is showing events. So if I click on specific events that I want to see, I can highlight this one here, I can highlight this one, and I can highlight this one. And then I did that holding shift, and I just click on the tracks. And then I go up here to the little house and say show tracks with selected events. And there I only see the 3 tracks that I selected. So this is a really effective tool, again, because look, this is track number 73 and this is track number 579. There's no way I'm going to be scrolling back and forth without losing myself in the process and losing an extra 1 to 2 minutes just trying to gather all my tracks and try to continue writing for the ensemble that I already have. So this is a great way to filter out those instruments so that anytime you're writing for a film score or a track, you could just nail down the sounds that you are working on and continue on from there. So now we're going to talk about our own configurations. What I did here, which is essentially creating your own visibility filters so that anytime you're working on larger sessions, you have these here and you can continue working off of these configurations. So there's one thing to note before we begin doing these configurations. Configurations only save on a per project basis. So you're probably going to want to create a template, which we'll talk about in the next unit, how to create a template so that we can save all of these configurations. And anytime you pull up your template again, these configurations stay saved. Because if you don't save a template and you just move on to another project just by saving the project with Command S or going here to File and saving it here, it's only going to save for this particular session. When you move to a different session, all of those visibility filters that you created will not be there and you can't transfer them over. So make sure you save it as a template so that you can reuse it every time. Or maybe you want to create a different visibility filter per project. It's all up to you. So let's go ahead and create some of our own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do show all tracks here. And I'm going to hide these locators by just moving it out to the side. And now we have all of our tracks available here. I'm going to do a Command A so I could delete all of my regions here. So now the first thing we want to do is just decide what we want to see at any given point. So to make this a little bit more simple, I'm going to use my smaller section. So I'm going to find my pianos, which is right around here. Right here. So it's hidden right on top of the strings. And notice how it took me even a while to kind of find these pianos because I have sort of similar color schemes for these sounds. But again, I'm not worried about what color it is. I'm just going to worry about using visibility filters. So anytime I need a piano sound, I can find it, which is why I created just a piano one. So if I needed piano, there's my pianos. If I needed anything that had to do with voices or choirs, here I have them. So let's go ahead and create one of our own. So I'm going to hit all, which is a visibility filter that I created, an all filter. And now let's say we just want to have a submix channel with strings, the percussion, and the brass. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse these folders so that's easier to enable and disable all of these folder structures within them. So I just want to see brass, percussion, no drums, and strings. So strings, percussion, brass, and I want to see submixes as well. So I'm going to turn off effects channel and I'm going to turn off this extra VST instrument I have here. And I only want to see this. So now I'm going to open them back up. And now I have my strings, my submix, my brass, and percussion. Now here I'm going to go to this little tab and I'm going to do add configuration. Now it's going to give you this so you could type in your naming scheme for this. So I'm just going to call this string str plus brass plus perk. plus submix. And then I'm going to hit OK. And that's it. You've created your own custom visibility filter. So now if I go down here, look at my new filter right here. Now let's say you have a particular order you want to put this in. As you can see, I've organized this in a way where I can clearly see where my instruments, solo instruments are, my duos, my trios. If I want to place them, let's say in the duos folder, I can go here to move configuration to position, and then I could choose the number I want this to be in. So let's say I wanted this to be a number 13. If I hit number 13, everything will scoot down a number for you. So now this is 13, and then everything else as follows. You can delete configurations if you're checked on it, and you can also rename configurations once you're clicked on it. And now you might ask, how did I create these solos, these duos? All I did was create an empty slot where you don't see anything. And of course the submixes are here, but it really doesn't matter what's here. And I created these extra ones where it's just labels. It's just so I can see where my combinations are in this list of visibility filters. So now I don't want this string, brass, percussion, and submix one, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this configuration. And as you can see, just like that, you deleted it, and now everything moves up a number once again. So this is a great tool for very large sessions, and of course there's no way you're going to be working at 2-3 in the morning and you're going to want to scroll through all of these folders trying to find exactly what you're looking for. You're going to want to bring this down into a more consumable size and be able to work from that instead of getting the giant template and working out of all of these. So it's super important to get used to using visibility filters, especially if you have large sessions. If you're working with like 10 to 15 tracks, you can manage all of those in one session window. You probably don't even need to use the visibility filters. But for larger tracks like this and larger projects like this one, then you're going to definitely want to take advantage of the features in the visibility filter that Cubase has perfectly laid out for you. So in the next unit of this course, we're going to talk about making a template, how to change preferences inside of Cubase, and how to use the profile manager so that you can save particular settings inside of Cubase, which will essentially help you take your customized Cubase session, move them all around the world on different machines, and you're still working with your own shortcuts, your own preferences, and your own tools. I will see you in the next unit. I'll see you guys soon. Hello and welcome to Unit 6 of this course. In this unit, we are going to be talking about how to make templates, how to make changes and save your preferences in Cubase, and what is a profile manager and how does that benefit you in creating or saving a profile manager. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the template. So the way we build templates inside of Cubase is very simple, it's super easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and put an instrument track. And let's go ahead and load up a piano sound. So I'm going to use Keyscape. So once Keyscape is opened up, let's say I want that and I want an audio track. Let's say I want 3 audio tracks. I want them to be mono, and let's just go ahead and just add the track and have Cubase choose the names for me. So this is the template that I want to keep for this because I know I want to have 3 audio tracks and 1 piano track. This is what I mainly use to compose my music, for example. So now let's say I want to save this template. I'm just going to go up here to File, and then I'm going to go to where it says Save as Template. You're going to get prompted with this window, and you're going to see that down here you could rename your preset. So let's say this is for songwriting. I'm going to call this my songwriting template. And then I would hit OK. So I can also create folder structures here, but I'm just going to leave it just like this since I only have one template I usually work out of. This is going to be my songwriting template. So I'm going to hit OK. And that's it. Your template is now saved. So now if I hit Command N or I go to File and hit where it says New Project, and I go into the More section, you're going to see that now my template has appeared and it's called the songwriting template. If I open this up, it'll just open up another copy of this exact project. And there you go. You have your 3 audio tracks and your piano tracks ready and safe to go. Anything that you've done in the tool section, anything that you've done in visibility filters, anything that you've done in your, let's say your mixer, here, and you've added like effects or some sends or something like that, all of that will be saved in the template. So the next thing we're going to talk about is creating preferences inside of Cubase. So you might have noticed throughout this entire course that my Cubase looks a little bit different than your Cubase. Mine might look a little bit dark, and the default Cubase looks a little bit brighter. Things like the cycle region, I have it really, really blue, and yours might be a little bit more pale. So how did I get these colors? So the first thing we want to do is we want to go into Cubase, and we want to go into Preferences. This window is going to pop up, and this is the window where you are able to change pretty much anything that is laid out here. So you can go one by one, reading what it is that you want to change, and you could change them. So for example, the color scheme, which is something that's very simple to do, and probably if you're beginning Cubase or not have too much experience, you probably don't know what any of these things mean, and it's okay. But if we go to where it says user interface down here, and then we go to where it says color schemes, this is where you're able to get a little bit more color out of Cubase if you want. So if you want it to be a brighter theme, you can. So let's say my project area is this area right here. I have it not too black, but I have it a pretty good amount dark. So now I could see, certain things better. So I could see the names of the tracks a little better. So I could see the regions a little bit better. But you can, of course, change the color, let's say to white, and now we have a white background. If I hit cancel, it's going to remove it, of course, because I don't want it to be white. I want it to be dark. And you could do things and open up these drop-down menus and then work on specific things. So for example, the cycle region, you saw that it was a little bit of a brighter or more vibrant blue. Well, that's because here I chose this color blue, and you could do that there. You can go into all of these little sections here and essentially change whatever color it is that you want Cubase to look like. So that's how you change the color scheme in Cubase. Let's say you want to do track default type. So anytime I open up an instrument, instead of it being like this grayed out bluish color, I chose it to be purple. So anytime I open up an instrument track is going to be purple. Anytime I open a MIDI track is going to be this red. The audio tracks are blue, just like this, so on and so forth. You can go and you can customize these colors as well. You can go things with fader color, things in the mix console, rack colors, the mix console channel strip colors, and then the track and mix console channel colors as well. So you can control all of these things and pretty much personalize Cubase to how you would like to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this because I don't want to make any changes to this because I have it just how I like it, and now you know how to change it for your liking. So before we move on to the profile manager, I want to touch upon a couple of other preference settings that could be useful to you. So if we go back into the preference settings and we go into the very first one, which is like editing, you can actually deselect or select things like part get track names. So if you do a part inside of the region here, you can do it so that it can automatically get the track name from the instrument that you're working on, or you can just go ahead and type it in like I showed you in the name when the object is created. You can change the name here. Another thing that's very important is if you go to general, you're going to see here we talked about backups. So you can actually have Cubase every 15 minutes do an autosave for you, and then you can have a maximum of 7 backups or 5 backups. I generally leave it exactly where it is, so I let it save after every 15 minutes. But you can change this and have it save every 5 minutes if you want to, or have it save every 30 minutes. But if you don't want it to autosave, you can also check off the box here. All the other settings, you could just kind of click through them like I said when we first opened up the preference window, is click through them, kind of change the things that you do understand, and the things that you don't understand you'll kind of learn along the way as you continue working inside of Cubase, and you can personalize all of these settings to exactly how you want to have them. So the next thing we're going to talk about, profile managers, will save all of this along with it. So let's go ahead and dive into the next topic. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about in this unit is Profile Manager. Now, here I have a window which tells you what the Profile Manager consists of. So the Profile Manager is essentially something that you save in a very, very small file, and you could take this to any machine, any Cubase program in anywhere around the world. You could load this Profile Manager up, and your preferences, toolbar settings for all the windows, the global space, track control presets, so on and so forth, are going to be saved in this one little file. So when you load it up into Cubase in any machine, you're able to see your version of Cubase wherever you go. So that is the importance of having your profile manager somewhere like on a USB drive, or maybe your Google Drive or a Dropbox or something equivalent to that, so that you can take this profile manager and take it around the world with you as you work. Because you'll never know what machine you're going to be working off of if you're traveling. So the way we find the profile manager is going to be under edit, and we're going to go to profile manager right down here. When we click on it, you're going to see this window pop up, and it's super simple to do. So mine is called John Moon, and then Q for Cubase, and this is my profile manager. All I need to do, if I created, let's say I changed some preferences, I changed a toolbar setting, or I changed something, all you would need to do is create a new profile manager. You're going to rename it, and then once you rename it, let me just go and put test, and you're going to click on it, and you're going to hit activate profile. Once you hit activate profile, you have to close down Cubase and have Cubase reboot into the program again so that the preferences can load back up. If you don't close it, it won't change. So you have to make sure that as soon as you activate it, I think it just prompts you to just close it right away. So you need to close it and then open it back up. You could rename, you could delete, you could duplicate one. Now, if let's say you have it on a Google Drive and you have it, let's say on your desktop, you can import it. So if I hit import, it's going to automatically open up this file here, and you search your computer and browse for the file. I believe it saves as a .srf file. So you're going to find that .srf file wherever it is that you downloaded it, import it, check it, hit activate profile, close down Cubase, open it back up, and then you'll have all of your preferences back. And the way you export it is just by hitting export. So if I hit export, same thing, you save it to wherever it is that you want to save it, your desktop, a hard drive, a USB, wherever. And look, it's a .srf file. You save it anywhere, and then you upload it to whatever cloud storage you want. So that is the power of the profile manager. And in case you forgot, here is the list of things that the profile manager saves. This will save you a ton of time, and this will get you working on any machine at whatever time. Let's say you're collaborating with someone. This will help you use your settings and your key commands and your preferences to continue working on a collaboration project that you've been working on with someone. Okay, so that was it for Unit 6. The next unit is going to be about color palettes. How do you assign colors? How do you change views for listing the colors? And much more. So I will see you guys soon.